Primitive Life, a novel by Louise Richardson. Chapter 8, Flight, Part 1. Harvey Llewellyn typed away, shaded just enough by the Cinsano Beach umbrella so he could read the screen of his laptop. The weather was just perfect, sunny but breezy, very little rain, perfectly conducive for his writing. He took a sip from his mojito and called out to Faye as he read the latest email from their publishing house. "We're in, Faye, darling." Faye descended the stone path from the beach house and embraced Harvey from behind, her margarita glass cooling his sunburned cheek. Harvey turned his head and they kissed. Faye took her place in the opposite beach chair from his and set down her drink on the round beach table. "We're in?" "The publisher has transferred a big advance to my bank account, our bank account. They liked the chapters we sent, and they loved your introduction to the book." "I'm no scientist, sweetheart, but I think your observations mesh very well with Roy's." Faye sipped her drink and played with Harvey's still wet hair. "Thank you, my dear," he said. "How did you find this island?" "The internet, of course. Great, isn't it? Quiet, peaceful, well-stocked wet bar." "I have to say you were right. It's so much easier to get our writing done here. No distractions except for each other. And it's so gorgeous." "That it is. And there's no one to bother us other than the locals who bring us ice and supplies every day from Nassau. I don't even miss plumbing. Of course, I couldn't do without it forever." "Not a bad life, as long as we have ice and booze and food and rainwater in the shower barrel. And we do have the diesel generator for electricity. And of course, Wi-Fi. I could learn to love the primitive life," Faye decided as she pulled her broad-brimmed straw hat down over her sunglasses and napped away the heat of the day. Leah and Otto. Leah and Otto, the deputy, enjoyed the surf and turf special and took a long time to get down to business, but neither one seemed to care. "How's your shrimp?" Otto broached. "It's good," Leah assured him. "And yours?" "It's really very good. I guess I didn't expect it to be so fresh." "Oh, they ice them down and truck them here in less than 4 hours. Probably as fresh as some places in Galveston, then." "Probably." Otto transitioned awkwardly. "You're the one that told Libby Jakes about ctenophores and cnidaria. Did I say those right?" "Yes, just right." "Well, you know the sheriff was sure the incident happened at 10:04 because of that recording. I guess I'm looking at the whole investigation with fresh eyes, but I think it happened much later that night." Leah loved Otto's fresh eyes. They were so blue, she thought she might want to swim in them. "Everyone I know thinks it was in the morning before sunup," she said. "That makes sense. We have some fingerprints, but they're not Mrs. Sharp's or her daughter's or Dr. Nordstrom's. Do you know anyone on the field trip who might have had it in for the deceased?" "Roy? I mean, Dr. Nordstrom? Of course, I only knew him from class." "Of course. You heard voices that night?" "Yes, it turns out it was Keisha, then Mrs. Sharp, just before the first thud or bonk or whatever." "Then you went back to sleep?" "Yes, but I woke up again because I heard that sound again, only much louder." "Okay. This is good because we didn't have all these details at first." Otto took out a notepad and scribbled something. Well, I've had time to think about it and sort out my thoughts. When was the second noise? I'm not really sure when the second one was, but it was probably just a few minutes after the first one. I was barely asleep after the first one. But you're certain it was after 10? He pressed her. Definitely, it was after Mrs. Nordstrom and Dr. Llewellyn drove up. When was that? Well, it was after 10, maybe 11:15 or 11:30, something like that. I should talk to them again, Otto declared. You really should. I probably shouldn't say anything. She had to get it out. What is it? It's probably nothing, but those two have been awfully tight lately. Who's that? Mrs. Nordstrom and Dr. Llewellyn. That's interesting. Otto made some more notes. It may be nothing. It looks like they're finishing Roy's Dr. Nordstrom's next book. Do you know that for sure? I saw her give Dr. Llewellyn Dr. Nordstrom's notebooks. You're a pretty good detective yourself. It's just something I noticed, that's all. Would you like dessert? The waiter asked. Otto and Leah glanced at each other. Sure, they both said. Gray Mama. Gray Mama trudged uphill, following the tributary of the great trickling river. She didn't know for sure where the males had run off to, but where else would Drummer and the others have gone on their ill-begotten expedition? She knew somehow that the creek would lead her to the conjunction of the two great rivers. That's where she would find the fray, Nasty's troop, and the males of her own clan. After 3 days, she was beginning to doubt her instincts when she heard cries of pain emanating from behind some boulders. Gray Mama climbed over a ridge to investigate. It was Creepy, the creepy beta male, and he was twisting the arm of a stranger who was being held down by two of Creepy's enormous henchmen. The stranger was covered with feces. Whether it was his own feces or not, Gray Mama couldn't tell. But she knew he had been humiliated before the torture. The henchman champs pulled the stranger to his feet, with Creepy holding the stranger's twisted arm behind his back. Creepy pointed ahead and pushed the forward-walking chimp in front of him, still twisting the arm. The bullies took up the rear. Gray Mama kept her distance as the group of males stepped down toward the creek where the walking chimps from the twin towering baobab trees were encamped. Gray Mama watched the camp from behind a termite mound at the top of the rise. She finally caught sight of Drummer. He looked confused and probably homesick, but well enough. He was sharing the leg of a baboon the band had just torn asunder. Drummer was in a group of 4 youngsters, all of whom Gray Mama knew, of course. Creepy grunted to the assembled males, and they all got up to follow. Apparently, the captured foreigner was to lead them to Nasty, who would presumably suffer a fate even worse than that of this captive individual. Drummer and his friends rose slowly, not sure what was going on, so they lagged behind the mass of walking chimps. Gray Mama, crouching as she went along, moved down the hill toward her son. She touched his back, and he jumped. Drummer's friends were happy to see one of their aunties and bounced in joyful greeting. Gray Mama pulled Drummer's arm, and the friends followed them behind the bushes, unseen by the larger group. Drummer hugged his mother, but began to stray in the direction of the marching crowd. His friends began to join him. Gray Mama reached out and tugged Drummer and one of his pals, each by an ear. The other youngsters followed them in amusement. They almost got away from the war zone before gorilla-sized walking chimps blocked their progress, threw Gray Mama to the ground, and pummeled Drummer and two of his buddies mercilessly. Another youngster got away and ran with all deliberate speed away from the fight. Gray Mama was cut and bruised, but she hoped the tender one would make it back home to his family. Sergeant Major Hal Henderson, back in his desert camouflage fatigues, rode shotgun in a National Guard Humvee with a kid half a decade younger than his son Dennis in the driver's seat. The engine was idling while the other vehicles filled with personnel. They were about to go out on another patrol in the dusty highlands of Afghanistan. Sergeant Major Henderson: "Man, I thought we had sand in Galveston. This place is all sand and dust and rock. Even a rock has some green. It's the fertile goddamn crescent after all. And we were in and out of there in 100 days or so. Well, the Gulf War is history. No need to go there again. This Bin Laden character's got thousands of caves to hide in. And we've got to check out thousands and thousands of square miles of nothing. He's probably in Pakistan by now anyway. One thing, though, we're kicking some Taliban ass, pious bastards. They're like Baptists from hell. They don't want anyone in Afghanistan to do anything. Keep their women under wraps. Destroy historic monuments. They dynamited those giant Buddhist statues that were hundreds of years old. We're doing the locals a favor throwing them out. Back home, Otto thinks he's closing in on a new suspect. I heard that before. He's closing in on some tale, if you ask me. He met this girl in Habsburg. His suspect has probably skipped the state, the country even, and I don't see him getting some guy extradited just to check out his fingerprints when there's no other evidence. Jan's taking care of Dennis. Maybe she's the one who turned him into a fruit in the first place, with all her mothering. Now she's coddling him all over again because he lost a leg. That kid will never stand on his own 2 feet. Well, he'll never be a man until he can take care of himself. He's getting around on crutches, okay, Jan says. Next, he'll be fitted for a plastic leg. City of New York gave him some kind of citation for saving the people in that office. Mailed it to him in Galveston. That's something. If he wasn't such a fag, I might even be proud of the boy. Shit, he just did what he had to do at the time. We gotta roll. Saddle up the Humvees, troops. Let's find that 6-foot skinny son of a bitch making all this trouble. He's on dialysis yet, and we can't find his sorry ass. Let's go get him. Chapter 8, Flight, Part 1. Primitive Life, a novel by Louise Richardson.